Hey everybody, welcome to Shifty's Club. I don't want to make this video, but I have to make this video. This is about the state of the NFL and the NFL draft. Today, I want to talk about a few things. First, the state of bad teams in the NFL. Second, the upcoming NFL draft and our best players available. Lastly, a plan for the team most wanting a championship turnaround. Before we start though, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all Shifty's Club content. Let's get to it. The first one is no huge surprise. Bad teams and franchises have existed in the NFL since its existence. The worst of them have a very huge advantage in the offseason. The first overall pick in the NFL draft. Unless it was traded away at an earlier date, the worst teams get the opportunity and the advantage to make their teams better by getting players considered by most to be better than most. Sometimes this works, and teams have players that can help turn their team from zero to hero. But too often, the exact opposite happens. A player doesn't rise to the level expected of them by their team. However, this is mostly due to the team's mismanagement of players, coaches, and resources, and more often than not, the blame falls on the general manager and the head coach. With some very small exceptions, like Cowboys owner Jerry Jones looking to make player and coach moves himself. Teams absolutely hate being considered bad. But it's worse when you've been bad for a long time, where you're slowly losing your fan base and maybe even losing your organization. Just look at the Atlanta Thrashers. They were an NHL franchise that was owned by Atlanta Spirit LLC, that was losing a lot of value due to poor performance, low attendance, internal conflict with ownership issues. They eventually sold at a huge loss to True North Sports and Entertainment, who relocated to Winnipeg. They are now known as the Winnipeg Jets. Fortunately, most NFL franchises have extremely dedicated fan bases, and their support ensures that most teams don't collapse, regardless of how bad they are. Take the New York Jets, for example. They've been bad ever since I can remember. They struggle to do the following: develop players they draft, acquire free agents that build towards team success, and make trades that benefit them. However, no matter how bad they are historically, they will always have a large enough fan base to keep the money pouring in to keep the franchise alive. Now, I say that to say this: while there are bad teams, they don't have to remain bad. They can make enough moves over time to turn their team completely around. And it starts with the draft. For the year 2026, the Las Vegas Raiders were the worst performing team, and they get the honor of having the first pick in this year's draft. In my personal opinion, as a professional sports bettor going on 14 years, the players that each team should draft are extremely obvious. However, most of your so called experts and well known sports debaters don't realize that just because certain players seem like the best doesn't mean they'll be the best pick for any team. A good recent example is from the 2022 draft, where everyone knew the best player in the NCAA was Aiden Hutchinson, but the first pick belonged to Jacksonville. Hutchinson was born and raised in Michigan, in a colder environment with little to no humidity. And not being used to warm, humid weather means he was more prone to cramps, breathing control, and heat strokes, regardless of the amount of water he drank. Jacksonville realizes this and instead selects who they consider the next best option, Trayvon Walker from Georgia. They are now one of the best teams in the NFL. An example of the vice versa is the 2021 NFL Draft, where the New York Jets drafted Zach Wilson, a QB from BYU. Here's the problem that a lot of experts didn't understand, and obviously neither did any of the Jet staff. The Jets use a shotgun offense, as opposed to BYU, who used an under center offense. Two extremely different styles. Normally, QBs can learn and adapt with the right training, but expecting one to start right away and still play well, that's asking to fail. Now you understand the importance of drafting the right players and building upon them and properly developing them for team success. So let's talk about the players in this year's draft. The media is dumping a lot of hype about a quarterback who they expect to be the first pick in the draft, Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. Sadly for him, he's certainly not the best player available in the draft. He might be considered the best player available for the QB position when teams finish all their scouting. But I'll tell you who the best players really are. Keep in mind, I've been doing professional sports betting for a long time, and I've been very successful, netting at least 50K every year, except for a single year where I ended my year early. I don't base my conclusions on watching a few games and watching ESPN. I do not study just their stats, but also how they do in specific situations, what their strengths and weaknesses are. I assure you that my predictions are as accurate as they possibly can be. The best player in the entire NFL draft is Markel Bell, a left tackle in his senior year from Miami, who just so happened to play for a national championship this year. Most of the talk around Miami's O-line has been around the right tackle, Francis Mauigoa, who is in his junior year. And the reason isn't because he's better. It's because he was a five-star prospect in high school back in 2022. Markel Bell never had a recruitment grade in high school. He is without a question better than his comrade on the other side of the O-line. As long as the team selecting him is in a warm weather area, he should become an NFL Hall of Fame left tackle who will be great for about 12 to 15 years. The next best player in the NFL draft is Hezekiah Masses, a defensive back from the University of California, who in my opinion is the best defensive player in the entire draft. He too is a player who, if drafted to a warm weather team, should be able to put up a Hall of Fame career lasting about 8 to 10 years. Unfortunately for both of these players, but wonderful for a team looking to make a playoff run in 5 years or a Super Bowl run in the next 10, there are a lot of useless stuff used in grading players and determining whether or not they will be successful in the NFL. Sadly, scouts refuse to admit that most of these are pointless. There is no reason for a bench press to be any measure of a football player's strength. I would rather see their power clean, a very explosive move that incorporates strength and explosiveness, which tells me a lot more about a player's ability. Same thing can be said about a 40-yard dash. Why do I care if you can run straight faster than everybody else when you are rarely ever running in a straight line for 40 yards? I'm more interested in your agility and quickness. There are several different exercises that can test these that are made for the different positions in football. Also, why do I care how good you were years ago when it's all about how much better you are now? Players like quarterback Terrell Pryor were #1 on ESPN 300 as a senior in high school, but they failed to be as great at the NFL level after a decent career at Ohio State. It takes really keen eyes, a knack for detail oriented study and research, as well as knowing and understanding the game as deeply as possible to be able to foreshadow as well as I have in the past. And I've been super consistent. That brings me to the next part of this video. If there are any franchises in warm weather environments who want the best possible picks for the draft this year, listen to this first. You'll want to have an offensive coordinator who specializes in a 4 wide receiver set or a 3 wide plus 1 tight end set. This gives you a running back for the rushing game as well as play action. It spreads the field, making it much easier for the run game to have fewer players about which to worry, but it also keeps the secondary honest if the running back is good. You'll also want a defensive coordinator who specializes in a 4-2-5 old school type defense, where you have 2 defensive tackles, 2 defensive ends, 2 outside linebackers, 4 corners, and 1 free safety. No nose tackle, no middle linebacker, and no strong safety. This defense is as neutral as it gets. It has no strengths and no weaknesses. It completely relies on making the correct call and adjustments to be made pre-snap. When successful, it's near impossible to be. But the opposite is true the other way around. The best offensive tackle is, of course, Markel Bell from Miami. The best offensive guard for your team would be Joe Fusau from Georgia Tech. The best center for your team would be Gavin Gearhart from Cincinnati. I wouldn't even bother getting a running back in this draft. The depth of running backs in this year, in my opinion, is fairly shallow. However, the receiver depth is ridiculously deep. The 2 most reasonable receivers that you can get are Daniel Sopkowitz from Illinois State and Skylar Bell from UConn. The best tight end for your team would be Tanner Koziol from Houston. Luckily, I believe any rebuilding team should be able to acquire all of these players if they wanted, plus the upcoming defensive players. The best defensive tackle for your team would be Dylan LaBarbera from Nevada. I'm not high on any defensive ends for this draft. I would wait for Joshua Stoneking from Furman to potentially come out next year. The best linebacker for your team is Byron Parham from UConn. The best defensive back is obviously Hezekiah Massas from California. And the best free safety for your team is Alex McClellan, assuming he comes out for the draft. If he doesn't come out, make sure you get him next year. Now we get to the most talked about position on any football team, the quarterback. Obviously, the offense I explained to you earlier doesn't usually work for college QBs who haven't had the training or development that most of your best QBs of all time need. This QB will be one of those you will want to develop over a 2 to 3 year span, having a veteran QB backing up your current starter and teaching him all of the ins and outs of the complexities of the position between the college and the NFL, helping him train and do all of the proper strength and conditioning training needed to perform best in the league. With all of that being said, the best quarterback for your team out of this year's NFL draft is Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt. The reason I take him over everyone else is simple: his work ethic. When I studied his play, his strengths, his weaknesses, reactions, ability in numerous situations, his determination and work ethic stand out the most. The reason most teams will write him off is also very simple: his height. Most teams prefer QBs who are taller, like Mendoza and Dante Moore, because they believe taller QBs have better vision. However, even at 6 foot flat, Pavia has better footwork and evasion compared to both of them. While he doesn't have a lot of experience in shotgun, if you let him sit back and develop for a couple years, I promise you, he'll not only learn it, he'll eventually master it. Jalen Hurts did the same thing at Philly. I said he was the best QB available, and he would become a true great if you developed him properly. And I was right. This draft collab is only the beginning of how bright the future of your NFL team could be. Keep in mind, though, the draft picks and undrafted players to sign I made earlier. These are for a team in warm weather environment. However, I'm so confident in my abilities, I will publicly make this offer to all NFL teams. I can guarantee you multiple playoff wins within 5 years and a Super Bowl appearance within 10. Here are the rules: I get full control of selecting all players in each draft. I also get full control on who to sign from free agency and who to release. I also get full control on who the team will trade, as well as who is traded from the team. I get full control of hiring and firing any and all coaching staff. I will allow a general manager to work deals with contracts on the players and coaches of which I approve. I have full reign of the facilities, being able to conversate with all of the staff as well as observe and help wherever I find it necessary. Most of you might be like, oh, no one would ever do that. And you might be right. However, here's the other part of my offer: the team wouldn't owe me dime one until I made good on my guarantees. That means if the team doesn't win multiple playoff games within 5 years, they don't owe me anything. But when a team does win multiple playoff games, they owe me $1 million per year for those first 5 years. If the team doesn't get to a Super Bowl within 10 years, they don't owe me any money for the next 5 years. But when they do go to the Super Bowl, it's the same as before: $1 million a year for those last 5 years. If there is any NFL team who is interested, I'm all in. If not, then this video was more for informational purposes than anything else, which I fully expect it to be that. If you stay to the very end, you are a very special part of the Shifties Club family, and you are very important to me. Feel free to leave a comment below, like the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time at Shifties Club.